Good morning. Mr. Tang Chihua, I am very delighted to be invited to participate in this forum. It's been 1 year since the COVID-19 broke out, and it's still going strong. And so far, 2.1 million people have died, and close to 100 million people were infected. China took very forceful measures and came out of the pandemic first, while the United States, Europe, and Japan were very slow in reacting to the pandemic. And China used mask diplomacy and vaccine diplomacy to strengthen its influence in the world. In Japan, what's the current status? By the end of last year, 230,000 people were infected and 3,000 people died. So at the time, many people were quite optimistic. But starting from the end of last year, we have more people infected and more people dying. So by yesterday, we have 360,000 people infected and over 5,000 people died. However, Japan did not impose lockdowns like China and Europe or the United States. We would call for people to wear masks at all time and to avoid large crowds and to work remotely. But people are still struggling, and I hope that this is not sustainable. I'm worried that this is not a tenable situation. Last week, we had a peaceful transfer of power from Trump to Biden. And this is something that we're paying close attention to all around the world. Although it's not a domestic issue for China or for Japan, but we believe that we had a sigh of relief when Biden took over. The new president is facing domestic and international issues. But what's required is more coordination and stability and to avoid further division. And this is something that we all hope for because there are so many risks and problems to be resolved immediately. And without the participation of the United States, we would not be able to solve these problems or mitigate the risks completely. Of course, the United States must contain COVID-19 first. In the United States, over 25 million people were infected and over 400,000 people died. And COVID-19 is still wreaking havoc. I don't think the United States has enough energy to help other people, let alone the entire world. But the United States is still a leader in global affairs, and it has responsibilities, and that's a fact. Especially, it has a great role in international trade and finance. So all the countries were affected by COVID-19, and production and consumption were disrupted. And except for China, all the other countries are experiencing negative growth of GDP, and the global economy is shrinking. And governments need to devote a lot of money and efforts to deal with the crisis. And that led to deteriorating fiscal situations in many countries, and that was a drag on economic growth. And also, we have to pay attention to diplomacy. We believe that by 2027, China's GDP will be head-to-head with the United States. And by that time, GDP of both countries will exceed 40% of the world GDP. And of course, in this context, the United States and China have great responsibilities. So far, China has had no such experience to act as um, an important force in promoting global stability. So how can China play such a role? We have to observe. And China and U.S. has trade frictions, and it's a very urgent matter. How can they deal with this issue? And there are also problems in terms of diplomacy and security. And the two countries have so many things to talk about and resolve. The two countries now uh, account for a very large share of the world economy. If they can resolve their differences, this will bring positive effect on the entire world. And both countries will need to call for other nations to join their efforts and to play leadership roles. What are some of the issues we're talking about? They include global warming, climate change, and the sufficiency of food and resources, and how to explore new ways to reduce um, poverty and bridge income disparities, and also the um, global economy, as well as um, nuclear non-proliferation. Unfortunately, all the countries are dealing with COVID-19, and they don't have enough time or effort to deal with these mid to long-term problems. And that's the reality we have to face now. So at today's forum, Prime Minister Chrétien spoke earlier, and for many years, he's been working on these global issues. Mr. Chrétien is an active member of the IAC, uh, short for OB Summit. And Mr. Tan Chi-hua also made great contributions to IAC. The OB Summit, or IAC, consists of 20 to 30 former presidents and former prime ministers, and they hold a summit every year. And in Japan, we have former minister and also the former Chancellor Schroeder, uh, also part of IAC. And since 1983 till 2014, we have summarized what we discussed during those OB summits to deliver to the current leadership in the world. So why did we establish this organization? That's because we were dealing with uh, oil crisis and global recession. After that, and China and the United States and the former Soviet Union were in a Cold War, and there was nuclear proliferation, and many people are starved. So these issues were discussed at the summits of IAC. We are also facing many global challenges. So how can we promote more balanced growth in the world? the United Nations also set sustainable development goals. And I hope that other countries will help to contribute to achieving the SDGs. And China is playing a very important role in this process. I believe that we can cover more topics going forward to have more in-depth discussions, and not just us old people. I want more young people to participate in our discussion. And that's my speech. I'd like to hear more insights from